Hello guys, in this video I would like to explain about the Venn diagram, which is very useful tool we can use in calculating probabilities of some particular event. Uh, let's suppose we have an experiment and that has a sample space. The sample space means that all the potential outcome of that outcomes or output of that experiment. We say that is a sample space. We will explain this in the next slides and that what is mean by the sample space with the example. And suppose there are events, two events in which we are interested. We don't know about exactly about these events in the sample space. This is the general interpretation of Venn diagram. So then the sample space is represented by this triangle. You can see this one, and we label this as S. And event A is represented by this circle, and that is labeled as A. And event B is represented by this circle, and that is labeled as B. So this is all about Venn diagram. When you are talking generally, you don't know about the sample space and you don't know about the events. So you can say this is a Venn diagram. This is the general representation of Venn diagram, which represent the sample space and the events in which you are interested. So you can use this to calculate the probabilities. Now let's move to the explanation that how we can explain this, the sample space and this event A and event B from example from the real life. For that purpose, we suppose an experiment of tossing a coin is repeated 3 times. So you remember that we repeat this experiment by tossing a coin 3 times. Let's suppose event A and B represent the event that contain at least 2 heads and 3 tails respectively. So what does it mean by this statement? This statement means that A is an event which have at least 2 heads and B is an event which has 3 tails. So I will explain the sample space and this event here, in the explanation. Then it is explained by using Venn diagram as given below. So then it is represented by Venn diagram. That how we can represent this sample space by Venn diagram. This Venn diagram is useful particularly when you have a large number of outcomes or output from an experiment. That how I think this is not easy. You can write all this the output or the of the experiment. So you can just say compactly represent by using Venn diagram. So the experiment is repeated 3 times, and that is tossing a coin. So this means that have that have 8 potential outcomes, and those are mentioned here. I will explain each of them in detail. And this is represented by S, that is a sample space. So in statistics, we represent this by S, sample space, and these are the output, potential output of this experiment. So the first one is TTT. This means that tails on all 3 coins. This is the possibility, one of the possibility. The second possibility is there are 2 tails on the first 2 coins and head on the third one. The third possibility is there is tail on the first and third coin and head on the second coin. And the fourth potential output is there is can be head on the first and tails on the last 2 coins. The fifth one is there can be tail on the first coin and heads on the remaining 2, the second and the third coin. And the sixth one is there can be head on the first and third coin and tail on the second coin. The seventh is there can be heads on first both coins and tail on the third coin. And the last one and the fourth one is there can be head on all 3 coins. So this is the last potential outcome. Okay, so this is about this means that these are all possible outcome of this experiment. So that is sample space for this experiment, which is denoted by S, and it is represented here by the triangle like this. This one is labeled as S. And then event A, which is event A mean that there can be at least 2 heads. So let's see which have 2 heads and 3 heads, because at least mean 2 or 3. So look at this. This this event has two heads, this has two heads, this has two heads, and this has three heads. So these all four events in the sample space. The second line of the sample space is event A because this has two heads in all these three events and three heads in this one. So this is the sample space. This is the event A, remember. And remember that you should write this one. Just bracket here. Okay. And then you can see that event B. What is event B? Event B is there can be three tails. So this you can see, just look at the S, the sample space, and there is only one output or even one output that can have three tails. So this is three tails is here, and that is event B. So this is sample space which have all the potential output of this experiment. Event A has at least two heads, so that's contain this four output from this experiment from the sample space, and B has is the event which have three tails, so this has this only one output. And now let's see how we can express this in the Venn diagram. So the sample space is represented by S, that is event by S, and that is a rectangle, and then event A which has these four output from this experiment is represented by this circle, and that is labeled A, and event B is represented by this circle and labeled as B, which has three tails from this experiment. So this is all about that what is mean by Venn diagram and how we can represent this from the real life example, how we can represent the real life example by using Venn diagram. And remember that Venn diagram is a very useful technique which can be used to calculate probabilities of event in which you are interested. So thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Ciao.